Estás escuchando Conversaciones de Altura.
We did it.
Yes. How are you, Dan? Nice to meet
Oh,
you.
nice to meet you, man. How you doing?
Good, man. Like I said before, I think we met around, I think it was 2015 when you guys toured with Red Fang and Cancer Bat. You were on that tour,
Okay,
right?
that's right. In the shrine.
No, you guys played Liz Palace.
Oh, okay, yeah. So they were on that tour, but they had to drop off. I guess they couldn't come over.
No, no, no. It was Red Fang, Cancer Bats, and I think you opened the show, like Indian
That's
Handcraft.
that's right. Yeah. So that tour we actually did it with Red Fang. But the band, the support, also down there that we were supporting was the Shrine. But
Oh,
then
okay, okay.
when we got to Boston, Cancer Bats joined up, and then the Shrine dropped off.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, they didn't play Toronto.
Okay, yeah. I thought you were talking about like a venue or something in Toronto.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, no, no. So how's it going?
It's good, man. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. I really appreciate it. That's awesome.
Are you in Toronto or in Barrie?
Barry.
Barrie. Okay, because I read that you guys moved to Toronto, right? At some point.
No, we played a bunch down there, but never moved there. Never
Uh,
moved there.
Fucking Wikipedia. It's
Oh,
lying.
really? Oh no.
Yeah.
They're trying to claim us as theirs. Well, yeah, but no,
Yeah.
we're
But that
north.
that's interesting because I mean I live in Toronto for 5 years, and I just want to say that I love Canada. I love Canadians.
Yeah. That's
Um,
awesome.
Toronto is a great city. I think I want to come back eventually. But
Yeah.
what I saw is that not a lot of bands from outside want to move into Toronto. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's kind of a blend from up here. So like we've had a few bands from Barrie that went, but they actually moved to Toronto and then actually started doing stuff. And that seemed to be the move for most people, like at least from my area, like in
Yes.
Barrie here. But we never did because it was just like we don't mind the drive, and it's I'm not really accustomed to busy city life.
Mm,
Like Barrie's a city as well, but it's much smaller in comparison you
right.
know so like I live in a house, I have a yard. Not that
Right.
that doesn't exist there, but it was just it was never really appealing to me.
Mm. Yeah,
you
it's
know
super expensive, Toronto.
oh boy, is it ever. Yeah, that's the other thing. Can't afford it.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, like having a house with like a garden and in a nice place and all that is super expensive, man. Like I to be honest, I was lucky. Like the first apartment I moved in, I stayed there my whole time, and
Nice.
I pay. I can't remember how much I paid, but it was cheaper than I suppose I was gonna pay. You know.
Yep.
But I love it, man. But I'm also curious about how is the when you guys started, how was the scene, like the music scene, like I mean, I guess metal scene, stoner scene in Barrie, because like you said,
Okay.
it's a city, but it's not as big as Toronto, of course. So I'm curious, like,
Yeah.
and of course I'm from Mexico City, so I'm really curious, like, okay, how is it there?
Right. Yeah, so Barrie here, I mean, it's like any other small city outside of a major city. Like we have all the same scenes coexisting at the same time as other things that are going on, as the music changes and progresses over the years, and degresses sometimes, you know, but there wasn't a lot of stoner, kind of metal, drony, doomy bands at that time when we started doing this. It was more, we had just come out of playing Brandon, the drummer, and myself back when we were a two piece. We had just come out of playing in more of an indie rock kind of band where it was a bunch of different people. We played together in that band for like 8 years. So him and I have been playing together for a really long time. But there wasn't a lot of that style of music. And the band that we were in at the time, the writing process was kind of starting to, I always wanted to keep it experimental to some degree.
Mm,
And I'd always been a huge fans of bands like the Melvins, and sleep and all those kinds of things. And the drummer and myself, just Brandon, we were like, yeah, let's start incorporating some of that into the band that we were playing with at the time. And we did a little bit, but then that band split up. So Brandon and I just stayed together, and we were having fun doing that. So we just kept doing it at that time. And there wasn't really a lot of people in Barrie doing it. But since then, there's tons of great bands, coming out of Barrie right now. And, there's, I'm sure there was tons in the city at that time too and everything else. But as far as Barrie, yeah, like we were really the only two guys.
Yeah, that makes things more interesting, right? Because at some point you have to open your own space, as in you have to create your own, maybe not all audience, but your own places to play, or you know what I mean, like create your
Yep.
own scene.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is here is it's a smaller community. So, I mean, the punks hang out with the metalheads and they hang out with the rappers, and like everybody, knows each other, and pays attention to what each other is doing, like regardless if you're a fan or not. It's a tight circle of people, and so it's really nice for that. So when we started doing that, it was embraced pretty much right away. And we had a lot of friends too that were like, old school skateboard dudes and stuff that, grew up on Sleep and Fu Manchu and bands like that as well. So it was a really easy crossover to get people to come out, because they had been wanting something like that for, since the 90s, really.
Right. Wow.
You know?
That's really cool, because in Mexico City, I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's not as inclusive. It's more exclusive. Like if you're a metalhead, nowadays it's more open.
Okay.
I'm 42, so when I was growing up, it was very divided. Like if you were a punk rocker, you can't hang out with the goth guys, or you can't hang out with the metal guys. It's either
Right.
you're a punk rocker, or in Mexico we call them escatos, like the people who listen to ska.
Yep.
But that's it, man. So it's I guess because you kind of need it too, right? In a place like Barrie, like, well, I get to hang out with this, because if I don't play with the hip hop guys, then am I gonna play by myself or what, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And the cool thing about a scene like this one, when you had all those different people, is you would end up in these weird band situations where it's like you got, like one of the bands I was in years ago, one of the guys came from, a 90s kind of grunge kind of, but not really, like, but quicksand influenced kind of band. And then their bass player and the drummer, had both played ska before. I was into Radiohead and the Melvins, you know what I mean? So you get those weird mashups of people, which translates pretty interesting when you listen to records, from back then.
No, for sure, man, and especially in the music that you create, because like I said before, yes, like here in Mexico, the metalheads are very close-minded, and that's the
Right.
type of music you create. And I was part of that, but at some point I'm like, all the bands sound pretty much the same, But when
Yeah.
you get something like you got, it's super interesting. All the music you created. And just as a parenthesis, something like a friend of mine had a similar story to yours and Brandon, because they used to play in a pop band, and then they like separated, but they started like a duo, like you guys, and you play.
Oh, nice.
You play not similar, but in the same category of music. So I'm like,
Okay,
oh,
cool.
it's interesting. I guess we're all connected. I don't know.
Are they still doing it?
Yes. I'll let you know about that band. I think you like it. It's called
Oh, yeah.
Terror Cósmico, like cosmic
Okay.
terror.
Send that to me after if you can. Yeah, I'm in a dry spell right now with music, so I'm looking for new stuff to listen to.
No, for sure. And now that you're talking about like listening to new music and all that, let's jump right into your new album that I listened to it a bunch of times, and man, it's amazing. I think it's my favorite.
Oh, no way. Awesome. Thank you.
You know what I found, that it's maybe more melodic in some parts, but it also has, like you said, like in some parts, like the quicksand helmet influence.
Yeah. We were pulling from a lot of areas on this one, but it was nice because this was the first full length that we did with as a three piece,
As a three, yes, yes. Okay,
which
so
was great.
okay, let's start there because there's a few things I want to talk about the new album.
Okay,
So
yeah, of course.
so this is the first one with the new bass player, right?
That's right.
You guys did Bastard, which is the EP. That was like your first,
That was the first of the three
like,
piece. Yeah.
okay. Those songs were? Did you write those songs together? The Bastard EP.
Yeah, so we started jamming together, and yeah, those songs pretty much just came from jamming together as a three piece. I had the majority of the riffs, but then Leland would come in with these smooth bass lines and then be like, "Oh, let's work on this." And he had him and I had been friends for a really long time too. So he already knew a lot about what we did, and he was a fan of what we did. So him coming in was very natural, although he was a guitar player, not a bass player.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay,
then
yeah.
he switched to bass to join because it just felt like he was the right fit, because Brandon and I had been doing the two piece thing for so long. But, by the time we had done the second album, Creeps, I kind of wanted to expand a little more on guitar. So that album has some leads and stuff, but they're not things that I can do live, so it just kind of, this was just the next logical step.
Right, and you couldn't make them live because you didn't feel it was the right thing. That is not going to sound good because you didn't have like a bass player. Because at the end of the day, you can use like a looper or something, right?
100%. But even using a looper, right, you can run into your setbacks. You could have a bad sound guy one night. Brandon's
Right.
monitor and might not be good. He can't hear where the one is anymore. And then all of a sudden it's a train wreck.
Yeah. That's the thing with loopers.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Everyone needs a click in their ear and you're good to go. But we didn't have that kind of gear. So
Yeah, no, I get it, man. So was it easy I guess it was easy, right? The adaptation to a new member and especially like not a new instrument, but well, I guess a new instrument to your band, right? Having
yep.
like a third mind.
Yeah.
How was that process of adaptation to a bass player?
It was pretty seamless, to be honest, because we were really ready for it, and in doing that, like I said, like he already knew kind of what we did and what we were about and everything else. So like, even when he's contributing riffs and stuff like that, like he's thinking about what our band is, as it exists, you know, he's not bringing in things that don't make any sense. So it gelled really well, you know?
Yeah, for sure, man. And you can tell listening to the songs, for example, Bastards, I think it starts with like a bass line, right?
That's right.
So how much of freedom you got from having now like a I guess a more common rhythm section? How much
It frees.
freedom did it give you?
Oh, tons. Tons. Yeah, in the beginning it was kind of like it immediately was like, oh, I want to play leads, and I was on a huge Robin Trower kick. So when we recorded that song, I was just totally pulling from Trower stuff and then just experimenting and being like, what can we do here? And like, I'm by no means any, amazing good lead guitar player. Like that's not really my thing. I have my own little voicings that I do, and that's about it. But I mean, a lot of it's just that pentatonic stuff or whatever. Um, but I still love doing it a lot, So once he came in and that opened up, it really cleared the path for, even experimentation or doing things, that were kind of more influenced by other guitar players like Johnny Greenwood and, guys like that from radio. Like it opens up it to everything because he's controlling the rhythm now with Brandon. And
Okay.
I used to have to do that all the time because if I go off rhythm, the song just is gone. Like the drum beat could be held down, but it would be weird to try and rip a lead, for 4-8 bars or whatever with just the drums going by themselves. Cause then it feels weird, Yeah, I'm no Jack White.
But even Jack White, right? If you're gonna play a solo, there has to be bass. I mean, it doesn't have to be like that, but
Well, he can get away with it. He's good. I'm not that good.
but so are like jam sessions longer now because of that?
Yeah, for sure. So before, the writing process would be fairly quick because it would solely be me coming in with the riffs for everything. And then Brandon and I would just get together and arrange it, throw some, whoever basically just starts shouting first is going to be the singer. And that's kind of how we did everything back then. That part hasn't changed. But now Leland will come in with some ideas, or, hey, I got a thing I've been messing with, and, can you play over top of this? And, it's kind of more, it feels more like what I think a normal band, with more than one string player,
Right.
what that feels like. We're kind of there now, which is nice.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. But I bet like having that freedom can also be, I'm not sure if dangerous is the right expression, but you have a lot of options to grab from, right? Like if you jam, I don't know, for 10 minutes, in 10 minutes
Oh,
you
yeah.
probably have a lot of ideas, right? Like
Yeah.
melodies and riffs, and then well, at least that happens to me sometimes when I jam with my band, and I'm like, what the fuck, how do I control that?
Yep.
Does that happen to you?
You can go off on tangents for sure, where you're just exploring, but you do have to be cognizant sometimes of the other people. Like, at what point am I just doing this for me at this point, and then they're just playing over and over and over again? But I've jammed with a ton of bands too, and sometimes you can run into that. So I'm really cognizant of like people's time when we're doing stuff like that. When you have that jam and you're playing in E and you've been doing it and you're like, oh, it's been 30 minutes. It's just like, okay, cut it off. Like, we're not going anywhere with this.
But that's also that's very what's that word? Enjoyable.
Yeah.
When you're in the zone with your bodies and you're just looking to each other.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's a few things in life that can beat that.
Yeah.
If you're a musician, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
People who are listening and have jam, it's the best.
Yeah. Once you get that synergy going, yeah, it's really nice. The endorphins start going, and you're in the moment with a bunch of people, and yeah, nothing can beat that. But it's funny when you're the guy who's really in the moment, and then you look over and the other guy's just like he's just done. I'm like, oh god.
It's usually the guitar player, right?
Yeah, just going and going and going.
Yeah, but you know what else is very important? The people that you play with. Because
100%.
otherwise, you can play with like the best drummer ever, but if there's no chemistry,
Yep.
nothing. There's no magic.
No sparks.
No. Okay, so let me ask you this. Now that we're talking about how you grind and how you jam, when do you know a song is ready? Like, okay, guys, this song is ready to be recorded.
That's a good question. I don't know. Like, generally when we're writing something, we know it's complete. Like, once we've got all of our bases covered. Like, my writing style is always, I kind of break the song up into sections. This is kind of how I've always written, so you're going to have your main riff. I'm trying to get into more of a regular structure sometimes lately, but once the parts are there, like your main part, your chorus, your main part, then your bridge, and then your separate section at the end is usually how I do things. Once I have those components and we're all really hyped on them, then definitely done at that point. But then once you go in the studio, it's never done.
Yeah, that was my next question, because in the studio, when you have a studio time, or just the fact that you're recording, you have a lot of options, and there's always something going on,
Yep.
And I mean, especially with like a producer like Toshi, shout out to Toshi, he's like a magician in the studio.
Yeah, he's the greatest. Yeah.
How did you guys meet with him? By the way, this is your third album, right? You guys did with him.
Third album with Toshi. Yep.
With Toshi, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So when we signed with Sargent House back in, I don't know, was 2012 or somewhere in around there. I can't remember exactly when, 2013, 2014. I don't remember. But when we signed with them, Kathy, the owner, she was just picking our brains, and she wanted us to re-record some of the stuff we had done, because we put out a EP ourselves that we recorded in a friend's basement up here at that point. So she wanted to redo some of those songs, and then use the new songs we'd been working on and create an album. And then she just asked us, she just said, if there's anybody you could work with, who would it be? Now, I had been kind of paying some attention to her label because I was a fan of a lot of the bands that had put stuff out on there, like Red Fang and at that time, or like, Zach Hill projects, and, like, I love all that stuff, was a huge fan. And then I knew that Marriages had recorded with Toshi.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so that was Emma Ruth Rundle's band before she went solo. So they had recorded with Toshi. So I knew there was a connection there. And I was, a huge Melvins fan. I have been since like the early 90s. And so I already knew of, all of Toshi's work that he had done and everything else. So we just kind of put it out there like, hey, I know that Emma and them, they recorded with Toshi. Is that a possibility? She's like, okay, well, let me call him up, and, we'll set something up. So we were there for the night. And then the next day, oh, Toshi's coming over. And we met him, and, from video clips I'd seen of him in the studio, and just kind of how his personality always shines through in everything he does. He was exactly how I, like one of those never meet your idol, or people that you really like, don't meet them. That wasn't the case with him at all. He was exactly kind of the person I thought he was. And he was very interested in working with us. And that was that. That's kind of where the whole thing started.
Yeah, he's the best, and like you said, that don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
Doesn't apply with him.
Not at all.
He's like the coolest person ever. So that first album you did at his studio, right?
Yeah, so that one we did it at I can't remember. We went to a bigger studio where Russian Circles was recording to record all the drum tracks. I can't remember the name of the studio. Sorry. but because the big part for me is that we went and did all the overdubs at the Melvin's rehearsal studio.
Okay, yeah.
So at that point, they didn't have their own studio yet, the Sound of Sirens.
Okay.
So they were in a giant rehearsal factory, essentially. And there was tons of bands playing in there. And we would just go in there and then record, guitar tracks, bass tracks, like overdubs, noise, vocals, everything. And we did it all in their rehearsal studio. So more than the studio, like going to a real studio, and it was beautiful and cool. And a guy would run out and get coffee and bring it back. And, like that's cool. But I was hanging out, in like one of my favorite bands' rehearsal studios. So that just kind of put the studio thing aside,
Yeah, no,
so
for sure, man. Those type of I don't know how to call them, experiences.
Yeah.
Those make your art better. I think I know what you. I have never recorded an album, but I know what you mean. Going back to the drums, did you record for that album? Did you record the drums in another studio, because that's something that you guys pay a lot of attention to, like the big sound of drums? Or
I think that would have been Toshi and Kathy's call. We were pretty green. We were really only used to recording in very small studios or people's houses, so it was just that was kind of more their decision to do it that way. And I know Toshi likes to use a room, and this room was fantastic, so again, we recorded, that. I think we did the guitars there too, but, just having that option was really nice. But yeah, that was all ultimately their call.
right, it's I bet you guys learn a lot of stuff, like recording your first album with Toshi, and like
Yep.
in LA. I mean, you were very far from home, so that gives you another perspective in life, in creativity, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was eye-opening to be down there and doing this because it was the first time where we ever, or I shouldn't speak for Brandon, but I'm sure he would agree. It was the first time, at least I felt really like it was, oh, I'm doing this for a living right now. Like I get up in the morning, I go record, do this, do that, have lunch, go record, then I have dinner, have a beer, watch a movie, go to bed, and then I'm back at it again.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to watch other bands, do that same thing. They get up in the morning, 10, 9, 10 o'clock. They're at rehearsal. They get everything done early afternoon. They got the rest of the day to themselves. They treat it like work. And I wasn't used to that because we're coming from, hey, my buddy wants to join a band and we're going to jam Friday night and, see what happens. And maybe we'll get a show. And it was interesting to go there and just like everyone's working at it. Like it's a job. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yes.
it was really cool. It was eye opening.
No, for sure, man. That gives you, like I said, a lot of experience, and it makes you grow both as a musician and as a band. I bet.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
the
Big time.
but the new one, Empress in Decline, you also
Yep.
recorded it with with Toshi, but he flew to Barrie, right?
Yeah. So he came here.
Okay, so that's where you recorded everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is our little impromptu studio. It's a room in a basement next to a laundry room. We call it the Beth Lab because we're Kiss
Okay,
fans. And
awesome.
yeah, this is exact. Well, I mean, this is everything we used right here, except Toshi had a couple extra things here.
So why the decision of bringing him to your place as opposed? Yeah.
Money. So we all three of us would have had to fly and take stuff and everything there, but this one we did ourselves again, right? So we're paying for it. So, but he was completely open to coming up here and hanging out, which was awesome, and we had done a number of things with him at this point. So it was nice to have him up here and, kind of meet our friends and our families and stuff. And,
Oh, that's
you
cool.
know, it was good. And then we did half the vocals here. Uh, well, like he recorded half the vocals here, and then we ended up recording the rest, just didn't touch any presets he had, and then just sent everything else.
Oh, cool. So he left like a studio ready for you, just like, okay, you just plug in and play, and
Yeah,
that's
just
it.
do this. Yeah.
Wow. How long did it take Toshi to record everything in your room?
I think he was here for I think he was here for a total of 10 days, but I think recording days it was maybe I want to say maybe 8,
Okay.
maybe 8. And like we all work, and the bills and stuff, so like we just kind of scheduled around who was going to be here when, and everything else. So like I still had to work those days. Like we're
Right.
all self-employed, or at least Brandon and I are, just because of playing music. When we had to go out on tours and stuff, you couldn't be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be gone for a month.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. So
No, no.
so I didn't have like vacation days I could use. So I still had to work a couple days and then come back here and record. And
Yeah, yeah. In Spanish, we would say vida de señor. Vida de señor. That señor is like Mister, but it would be
yep.
like, yeah, like a Mister Life, like a grown.
Oh yeah.
It would be more like a grown up
Yep. Okay.
life, you
Yep.
know.
Oh yeah.
So
I
cool.
no,
Okay, let's go back to the new album. You recorded it with Toshi. Did you have your guitar sound already set up? Like, okay, I want my guitar to sound like this.
yep.
Did he come and help, or maybe you can do this or do that?
Yeah, we'd worked together enough times. Like he knows basically what I'm going for, and a lot of the tone modeling and stuff like that I started to take on was kind of as a result of working with him. And every time we recorded with him, like we were always using very similar amps and everything else. So, he tweaked a couple things, yeah, for sure. But for the most part, yeah, like the majority of it was ready. The only thing that was different between this time and last time we recorded with him was, um, I started using an SG instead of a Telecaster.
Oh, cool.
So there was some tone differences this time as opposed to last time, but I like to think I got a decent enough ear that I could dial in a good tone,
Yeah. No, but it sounded great, man, or it sounds great rather. So what amps did you, or yeah, I guess what are the most popular amps in Indian Crafts discography? What are like the top hit, like the hit?
Oh, well, for this album here, this is on my laptop, so I can't really,
Oh, I see a
without
Fender.
pulling all the chords. Yeah, so
No,
I got a Fender Twin. It's a 74. So I
tremendous.
using that a little bit more. I can probably slide this over a hair like this.
Don't worry, man. Ah, okay. Oh, shit. You have
This is more the amp area here.
no shit.
So I got a JCM 900. That's from the 90s. That's my pretty much all the time amp. This one's on loan. It's a JCM 800.
Oh, tremendous.
And then for like lower tones or like octave pedal, like for overdubs, I use this old Trainer. It's a Group 3 VC. And then down on the bottom, I don't know if you can see it down there. I just got this guy fixed. It's a Sun concert bass head.
Oh, okay, cool.
So yeah, when I'm really going for the low end stuff, that's kind of more what I'm using. Oh, and then my secret weapon for tone,
Yes.
oddly enough, for like bass and everything. And it's funny because I just started watching this documentary on Apple TV. It's called Watch the Sound with Mark Ronson.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It's good, and he's talking to Josh Homme about like his secret weapon amp. And I was watching it, and I was like, he pulled this amp out, and I'm like, I use one of those.
Oh, I know.
Not the exact same one, but I was like, same thing. This guy here,
The PB Crash or not Crash.
it's a Rage 108.
Yeah, I had that. I had that as well. Best distortion ever.
Yeah, so I usually, I'll run bass overdubs through that, or like anything, guitar distortion, drum machines through pedals.
Yeah, I think I might seen. I probably I cannot remember, but I think I've seen a guy that makes a pedal version of that amp.
Oh, no way.
Yes, I think so. I'm 99% sure.
Okay, yeah, awesome.
Because
I
that became like kind of recently a popular amp, like the small PB amp.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the thing. I got it for $30 at a hawk shop, and I didn't have to do anything to it except turn it on and just kind of, turn the dials really quick to get the out of the
Yeah.
out of the volume.
Yeah, man, I love it. PBR are underrated sometimes. I think they have like nice products, but just because they don't look cool,
Yeah.
people just like. But
I-
there's some jewels.
I think they have one of the coolest looking logos I've ever seen on an amp.
I have to agree with you. That's
They're
funny
good.
because I was thinking that not too long ago, like 2 days ago, someone posted something on Facebook about like logos of instruments, and I'm like, fuck yeah, like the PB is one of the coolest
Oh yeah.
logos ever. It's like it's 80s, it's very 80s,
Mm-hmm.
but it does. I mean, it still holds up.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I heard. Who was it? There's like a lot of like I've heard of like black metal dudes using those amps and stuff, which makes sense because you listen to some of those early black metal albums,
Oh,
and the
yeah,
guitar
yeah.
is just like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
But that was the point, right? That's so funny, man. Like I listened to those albums, and I'm like, when I was 15, I was like, oh my god, the devil is here. But now I listen to them, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cute. But that sound, it's so funny that I listen to those albums, and I'm like, man, those guys wanted to sound like shit, like literally like shit. But I guess
Yep.
that's the beauty of it, I guess. I don't know.
Yep. I don't know. Yeah.
So you use those albums in your those amps in your new album.
So for the album, it was mainly the JCM 900, the Trainer Group 3, PV for overdubs. Those were the main ones for the album. The Twin, I actually just got back. I got it fixed. I actually blew it up on a stage when Brandon and I first started playing together. It just started smoking and it just died.
No
That was
shit.
it.
So you play with that, like the Fender, and then like a distortion pedal, or just the overdrive of the
So
amp?
with the Fender back in the day when we were doing the two piece when we first started, I would run that trainer amp, and then I'd also run another line out into a PA head, and then run through a 215, and that would have its own fuzz pedal, and its own delay on my board separate for that, and then an octave generator, like one of the Pogs, and then everything else would run through the Fender. So
Oh,
you
okay.
kind of get that split tone. So you've got your bass here and your guitar here.
Right.
So that's kind of what we used to do. And I still do that sometimes now just to experiment, but we have Leland now, so I don't really need to bring any more amps.
No. That's
I'm getting old.
no. I feel you, man, and I think those. It's great that now you have the option of just buying like a preamp or something, and that's the only
Yeah.
thing. Well, I mean, plus your pedals and all that, right? But that's pretty much all you can use nowadays. Just maybe either connect it to the PA or bring your just like a cabinet and mic it.
Yep.
But when you play the type of music that you guys play, you kind of need to crank it, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. For sure. It's you definitely need to push the speakers.
Yes,
You got to
yes.
give them a workout.
A few moments later.
Is it sunny now? It's still sunny in Barrie?
No, it's sun's been going down, I think around like 8:20, 8:30 now.
Okay, yeah, the last day of summer, right? Summertime.
Oh, was that today?
No, was it? I don't know. I don't even know what date today is. Well, yeah, you might be right. Yeah, I think today is the last day of summer.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I mean that's the only thing that I had a hard time with, the weather.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh wow, yeah. How was that experience? Like I imagine, your first snowstorm.
It was amazing, the first snowstorm, but like December, January, February, I was like, oh my God, this is very cool. It's beautiful. But then March, then April, and it's still snowy.
Yeah.
I still,
Yep.
I still love it, man. I mean, Toronto I mean, to me, I love it. It's a great city. I mean,
Yeah.
I got to see a bunch of my favorite bands.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah,
What
I love it, man.
what years were you here?
2012 until 2016, 17.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I saw you guys. I think it was on your first album release at it had been the Horseshoe Tavern, maybe.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
I can't remember who opened the show.
I don't know. First album release. Maybe Grays. We were playing with Grays a lot back then.
Yeah, I remember them. I saw them quite a few times, with Burning Love and
Burning Love. Yeah.
Burning Love. Yeah, Chris. Oh man, I would love to talk to him on the show. He's
Oh
a
yeah.
super nice guy.
He so we wrote the song Red Action. This was before Sergeant House and all that stuff had ever even happened. And we played a festival with Grays and them that this girl named Bushra used to put on in Mississauga. And we played a show with all these bands. It was our first time playing with a bunch of bands like that. And I wasn't super familiar with, how important of a guy Chris was. And but I remember watching Burning Love and I was like blown away. And I didn't realize, but he was also writing about the festival while he was there too. I can't remember who
Okay.
it was for, but for somebody. And he heard the song Red Action, and Brandon has a line, civil disobedience for losers. And we never really thought about it. It was just a line. And then he wrote an article and he titled the article Civil Disobedience for Losers. And we were like, we got to call the album that.
Yeah, yeah, your first
So
album. Yeah.
he kind of in a way pointed us in the direction of naming our first album. That was him. So
Oh,
props to
that's
that
cool.
guy.
Have you met him? And have you talked to him?
I've met him a couple times. He's a super nice dude. And then there was a ton of time where I hadn't seen him or talked to him at all. It's kind of like, musicians in passing
Right.
kind of thing. And I ran into him years later at a Big Brave Sun O show. And we
Cool.
shot the shit for a minute, but I realized that I guess when he's out, like people kind of gravitate to him because he's important, but so it was just a
Yeah.
quick like, oh hey man, yeah, I remember, yeah, cool, cheers, good to see you. And then okay, I'll off you go.
Yeah, it's funny. I had something similar with him. I met him through Torch guys.
Okay, yeah.
So because I can't remember how I met the Torch guys, but anyways, when I told them that I was moving to Canada, John, now guitar player, he was like, "You should meet Chris," and I'm like, "Who's Chris?" And then I went deep into his like discography, and it blew my mind, man. Because I'm into like the hardcore and in Mexico we say tupa tupa, which is like the beat, tupa 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 tupa, and I love that, all that shit. So I was like blown away with all his bands, man.
Oh yeah, awesome.
With, like Course and all that. But anyways, let's go back to you and just to be rounding up this amazing conversation. I think are you having fun? That's
yeah, man, I love talking to people.
Okay, that's all that matters to me. As long as my guest is having fun, that's all that matters. So let's talk about your pedal board.
Yes.
I guess it has changed, right, over the years.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you taken things out? Has it grown or?
I've taken some things out, and added things over the years. I had pretty much like a one style setup, when we were the two-piece, because it had to function in a very particular way.
Right.
And also with flying down to the States to, go do shows or whatever, like you can only bring so much stuff. So it was pretty minimal. And ever since then, I've never been like a guy who's got like one of those pedal boards.
Okay. Yeah.
And nothing against that. Like that's great. And it works for some people. And maybe one day I'll have enough money to have all those pedals. I have nowhere near as many pedals as like Toshi or somebody like that. But yeah, so I've, there was a very specific setup before. And then now that Leland's joined the band, it's been nice because I've been able to add a couple things and pull things out that I don't need doubles of anymore, which has been great. So yeah, it's changed a lot over the years for sure.
And what do you have now?
So currently, well, here, I had a feeling this question might come up. So
yes, this is Nerd Talk. This is the part of the show where we go deep.
So in the very beginning of my board, it's one of these dudes.
Oh wow, is that the first edition? Or because those are great, man.
So I used to use this on the beginning of my signal chain, just because when I was playing the Pog and the two-piece, whenever I wanted to slide up to a lie or to a lead, I can just put the octave to where I want it and then be playing real low and then just hit it. And I don't even have to move. And now I'm, hitting an octave,
right,
or two octaves or whatever. So I kind of learned about these from watching what Jack White would do, because he would be playing leads, but then I'm like, oh, is he on the 24th fret? Like, what's happening right now?
Right.
And then I saw a live thing and he was using one of these and I was like, oh, and then I'm sure guys like maybe Pantera, I don't know, but like, whammies, whatever, so that was always first. And then now, I don't know if you can see this. How do I do this here?
No, I think I can see. Oh shit.
So this is what I'm working with. Oop, I'm banging the mic. Sorry, that doesn't come through too loud.
No, don't worry.
So this is what I'm working with now.
Oh shit, I can see. Okay. So it's the Melvin's, okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
The Pessimister, or I can't remember. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So oddly enough, what I did, so I run into the tuner first and then always the octave generator after that. Then from there, I run to basically like it's a univibe / tremolo combo. And then what I'll do is I'll run from there to just a Seymour Duncan, but like a pickup booster.
Okay, cool.
So I actually, for a while, I stopped using distortion pedals like altogether. I've only used a booster. I
Wow.
found what happened was between Leland and myself, and he has an expansive pedal board. Like he's got one of these ones.
Okay.
But what happened is we started fighting for the same tone frequencies in the room. So, you know, when you're jamming and the bass has a lot of high end in the distortion, and so does the guitar, and then the cymbals are going, and you're blowing your voice out and you keep turning up because you can't make out what's happening.
Yeah.
And then one day it was just like, I'm going to get rid of my distortion pedal, you know, and then he toned his way back down. So I'm playing more off of the actual amp tone now in the Marshalls. I run the gain about half.
Okay.
And then when I click this in, it's almost like I've cranked the gain on the amp.
Okay, cool.
So I stopped using the distortion, but then I put the pessimizer back in because I love this pedal because, I mean, for one, if I want to really thicken up the distortion tone, if I'm going into a chug spot,
Okay.
the EQ on this is fantastic. You know, or if I just want insane feedback. So with the pickup booster, if I stop playing for a minute, I'm not going to squeal. But if I want to, kick this guy on and then, yeah, right. But I use this pedal for everything. I use this for vocals. I use it for a drum, like room mic, bass, like everything. It's great. And then after that, delay pedal. So I'm still running 2 delays right now. I've got the TC Electronic. I don't know what the model name is. But then I still got my,
I think, is it the flashback?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Flashback. I don't have my glasses on.
Yeah.
So
like
I got
the
one of
Flashback
these
4 or something. Yeah.
which is really nice because it's got different options, but I still like the option of I still have a DD2 on my board.
Okay.
I just like the, that just for like the, you know, the, like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And then a looper and then, some reverb. And that's really it.
Wow, that's great. Actually, going back to the Hillbish pedal, they made, I think he made like a beta lead version in pedal, right? Have you seen that?
I've seen it. Yes.
Have you played it?
I haven't seen it in person, but I've
Oh.
seen it. No. We, he has a bunch of gear I want, but again, you know, money, it's expensive stuff, but it's worth it.
No,
It's
for
worth
sure,
it
man.
for sure.
You know who else makes great pedals like distortion and overdrives? John from Torch, John Nunez.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He also makes great stuff and great amps. You know how? Have you seen them live, Torch?
I've not seen them live.
Oh man,
No, our bassist Leland, I'm pretty sure seen them live maybe once or twice.
yeah,
Oh.
they crank it, man. So I think you
yeah?
like it. Yeah.
All
I
right,
love it,
all
man.
right, I'm down.
Okay, man. Well, Dan, it's been a pleasure, buddy. I don't want to take more of your time.
No worries at all.
It's great. Oh, well, you know what? Let's talk a little bit about the other stuff you do. I think I read that you make music for like commercials and stuff like that, more in like the industry way, I guess.
No, so I'm working towards that. That's a
okay.
plan. Something might be on the horizon, but I've always did, and again, like you're talking about influences and music and stuff like that. Like I have a bunch of other musical projects on the go kind of at all times. So
Okay.
you may have saw one of those for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to build a library right now. I did a little bit of soundtrack stuff for the 2 latest Indian Handcrafts videos we released, Criminal and Bad Mood Lighting, which was like a 2-part video, basically, a part 1 and a 2. So I did some soundtrack stuff for that, but it's something I've always wanted to get into. So I'm working on now, like building a library of stuff. Okay.
Like you mean like I think I watched one of the videos. If not, I think I watched both videos. There's like a jazzy part at the end, maybe.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, so we did that here too. Yeah. That's
Oh,
actually Leland singing that song,
oh
the bass
wow.
player.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you
and then
wrote
I
that music.
yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool, man.
just yeah, I've been always been a fan of like movies like The Shining and stuff like that, or you have those really scary movies and then they pan over to this kind of weird feel good wah 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 kind of music. I've always been a
Yes,
fan of that. So I was like, oh, if we're doing like a horror kind of thriller type video, we have to steal that move. We
yes.
have to write a song like that. So
And how did you put your mind into writing something very different than Indian handcrafts?
Uh, well, again, I have a lot of projects kind of on the go at all times, and some of them are, like I write for a lot of them. So it's all coming from myself. I'm getting off track. But as far as that, it's just different influences. I've always been into all sorts of different types of music. I'm
Mm,
a big fan of like, Mr. Bungle, bands
yeah.
like that, who write in ways, outside of, the norm,
Mm,
for most bands.
right.
And I've always, been a fan of, all sorts of music. Everybody from, like I like black metal stuff. I like Tom Jones, I like MF Doom. I like Melvins,
Yeah.
so I kind of pull from everywhere.
That's awesome. Do you still learn songs from other bands?
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah.
always helps, right?
I find it's huge. Brandon and I started doing Kiss covers a long time ago,
Oh
and
shit.
so we have this band called Crystal Beth, and we started doing that. But I've always been a fan of covers. I always enjoy other bands' interpretations of covers, and it's fun and challenging to try to recreate something, with your limited things that you have, but to piece it
Right.
together and do it well is really rewarding. And sometimes when you're learning those songs, there's things that you're like, okay, well, if we're going to reproduce this live, like Synchronicity 2 by The Police, there's so much going on in that song underneath the three-piece band, like all like noises and stuff. So it's like, I really like the idea of tuning into those things to figure out what's happening there. And it helps when you're in the
Mm,
studio. It gives you ideas and things to pull from that some people are not
right.
really listening to, and that's where I like to look for inspiration and things to do.
No, for sure, man. Especially like you said, like stuff like Mr. Bungle, even when they stopped playing, those guys created their own stuff. I mean, Mike Patton alone,
Uh,
but the Trevor Dunn, the bass player,
yeah.
and Trey Spruance, he's playing with Secret Chief 3. Have you heard
Oh,
it?
they're so amazing. Yeah. I've seen them live. They're so good.
Yes, I saw them at the Lis Palace.
Oh, nice. I saw them there too.
Oh wow, yeah, we were at the same show like five
Oh,
or
that's
six
amazing.
years ago.
That's amazing. Yeah, dude, they're so great. He's one of my guitar heroes for sure.
Oh my god, yeah, mine too. He's on another planet, man. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
that type of stuff, I always find it really fascinating, especially the fact that that guy went in, like he went deep into like not, I was gonna say medieval music, but like Middle Eastern music.
Yep.
And
Oh
he
yeah,
knows,
huge.
yeah, like he knows everything about the culture, and that gives, at least to me, when I listen to that music, it gives me another perspective. I don't know if that makes any sense. Just the fact that I know that he went into learning that culture and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of loans like a bit of credibility to what he's doing. Whereas
Yes,
nowadays it's very easy for someone to write somebody off who's doing something like that and be like, oh, well, they're just doing this and but like if
yes.
you're really into it and you're invested, I mean, you got to respect that. That's amazing. And it shows in his playing and, the artwork, everything they do.
Yeah,
So
no, for
great.
sure, man. And the fact when they wear the capes and all that, yeah, that's crazy. So just to finish, what's next for you guys? Are you guys gonna tour?
Well, I know this will be out after this has already happened. So, tomorrow, but this might be 2 weeks ago. We're playing we're playing a CD release party this Friday down in Toronto for this album. We had to postpone the first one. So we're playing a gig down there at the Bovine with some really awesome bands. Sons of Otis, which was like a doom kind of stoner band that's been around Toronto since the 90s.
Oh, cool.
And a black metal band called Mount Cyanide, who's a really good friend of ours.
Nick's band. I know Nick.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, dude. Nick's the greatest. I was
Yeah,
talking to him yesterday.
He's the coolest. And you know how I met him? Not through music, through through Krav Maga.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I was actually just talking to him about that. I was talking to him. I'm starting to play in a basketball league, and I was talking about the idea of being beaten up and having to go play a show. And he's like, oh yeah, there would be days where he'd be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do Krav today because I have a show the next day and I don't want to be dead.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. He's a great dude, man.
Yeah, that was really cool. When we met, it turns out that we have a lot of common friends.
Oh, amazing.
Through like music and all that. But
awesome.
But I've never seen Mount how do you say?
Cyanide.
And his other band that I love, Biblical.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Oh man, I never got to see them. That I got late into Biblical.
Well, they're working on some stuff right now, so.
Oh, cool. I'm glad to hear that, man.
You got to hit them up.
Yeah, I'll
get them on.
Yeah, that's cool. I should ask Nick if he wants to be on the show. If he's listening, Nick, the invitation is open.
Yeah. I'll be seeing him in a couple days, so I'll let him know too.
Okay, cool, man. Well, Dan, I mean, it's been a pleasure, brother. Hope to see you guys maybe one time in Mexico. That would be fantastic. Dope.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I guess we can plan it. I don't know. We can make it happen.
Yeah, we'll figure out something.
Yeah, you know what? There's like I wouldn't say a huge scene, but like the doom stoner droney scene in Mexico it's growing. It's growing.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, we have some people that dig us down there for sure. You know, so it'd be nice to try and pull that off at some point. I mean, we've been so close before.
Yeah. Do you plan to tour the States with this album?
So as of right now, this album, we actually sat on it for a while because pandemic and everything else, right? So we're actually itching now to start writing again.
Oh,
you know, like get back into that mode. So, you know, we're going to play some more shows around this for sure. We got a few things that might be coming up on the horizon, but, you know, as of right now, nothing 100%. But yeah, we'll see where we're at. You know, in a couple months from now, what's happening and everything else. We'll go from there.
Yeah, that would be cool, man, because it would be easier. Like if you guys play LA, maybe we can book like a Tijuana show and then fly you guys from there.
Oh, that would be amazing, man. That'd be so awesome.
Yeah, man. We'll talk about it.
All right.
For sure, man. Well, then, brother, it's been a pleasure. I'll let you know when this episode comes out, and yeah, man, we'll keep in touch for sure.
Awesome, dude. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Have a great night.
You too. See you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.